Adam at Trump Nation here. Donald, you're my boy. I run Trump Nation for a reason. Well, I mean, besides trying to make money for myself, I do some stuff for Bernie Sanders too, for that regard. But in that regard, but I am a Republican. Uh, I love your tweets. You've made such good use of that as a medium to the point that it would not be entirely inappropriate to compare it to John F. Kennedy with TV, even though that's probably a stretch. But maybe you're tired, you screwed something up, and you like pointing out your University of Pennsylvania education. I'll point out Wharton, which is probably a slightly superior reputation than University of Pennsylvania as a whole, even though both my parents, brother and sister and brother-in-law all went there. I did not. You got something wrong here. You wrote at about 6:45 Eastern time today, why would Texans vote for liar Ted Cruz when he was born in Canada, lived there for 4 years, and remained a Canadian citizen until recently? Without editorializing, because I like Cruz a lot too, I'm more conservative than you are, and I am very impressed by Cruz's credentials, but that's not the point here. You have liar in quotation marks. Why? That's as if to say the rumors about Cruz being a liar are not true. Cruz supporters would put liar in quotation marks. By doing that, or scare quotes as some call them, you're saying you don't really believe it. That's not good. I mean, it's out there now, but you probably want to fix that thing, or whoever is writing your tweets, which are usually correct on a grammar punctuation in a grammar punctuation sense. They're usually correct, but you got that wrong, or he got that wrong, or she got that wrong. Also, I know characters matter in Twitter, but you also have in the third line there, 4 years. 4 is not spelled out. Okay, that's a Twitter custom, but you probably should have gone with 4, number 4, and then FOUR, just to show that when you write out the word 4, like any number, I think it's up to 12, you actually write the word out. Then with 13, you start putting the digits in there. I just want to point that out. There might be some middle school students listening here. Anyhow, I made my point, but it's too short a video, and I think there's some interesting comments on that tweet. By the way, you wrote 5 minutes later, nothing wrong with this grammatically or punctuationally. When Ted Cruz quits the race and the field begins to clear, I will get most of his votes. No problem. I agree with that, though I think, yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. People responded to the liar in quotation marks tweet, not really in the way I did. Blah, blah, blah. Donald Trump is a crazy man. Open your effing eyes. Something about Trump vodka failed. Graphic. Whatever. Someone named Jason Chad Roth writes something about Ted Cruz is snaky and deceiving like a cheap used car dealer with a bad rep. Not presidential, very creepy. I don't know about that. I think that's stating it too strongly. He just doesn't have the command of alpha male body language that Trump does. He's very logical, but he just doesn't have the charisma. I don't know how important that is, but it is somewhat important. Whatever. And he also writes Lincoln failed at his first run for president. No, he didn't. And you don't have president capitalized, Jason Chad Roth. He got that right. He lost in Congress to Stephen Douglas, and he failed at many things, but I think he won as president his first time. I'm most positive. Bill Gates dropped out of college. Trump is a winner. I'm not sure that makes Bill Gates a loser. I think he had something better to do. I just want to make a point about Canada, since that's there. Speaking of failures, this is pathetic. I just want to editorialize. Okay, you can drop it. I'm not saying anything more about Trump. But if the NHL finals, playoffs were held now, and I'm not a big hockey fan, but I've looked at the statistics, not a single Canadian team would make it. Not a single one's even that close. That's pathetic. I think 5 of the 7 made it last year, even though they all did about as miserably as was possible, with 2 of them playing in the first round last year, though I think Montreal may have picked up 2 games in the second round. It was a disaster. It's been since 1993. It's going to be 23 years now. I mean, you can assume that a Canadian team's not going to win the Stanley Cup this year. That's pathetic. And I also would like to point out that no team had gone longer from the between baseball postseason appearances than the Toronto Blue Jays until last fall. Even though, ironically enough, before the wild card and 3 division per league era started, interleague play era, Toronto was the 2-time defending champion. You would not have figured them to be the most likely to have that, but they had gone the longest longer than anyone without being in the baseball postseason, and yet they had been in more recently than any Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup. I mean, the Canadians had won a World Series more recently than they'd won a Stanley Cup. Not only that, the Raptors are pretty good in basketball this year, so they're going to make the playoffs. Toronto is arguably the strongest team in baseball if you look at the lineup. It's just, we're talking about Cruz in Canada. I just thought I'd mention that because it's not worth its own video. This is Adam at Trump Nation.